Sense Radio.
Well, here I sit a high, getting ideas. Ain't nothing but a fool to live like this. Out all night and running wild. Woman sitting home with a month-old child. Dang me, dang me. They ought to take a rope and hang me high from the highest tree. Woman, would you weep for me?
Good morning, you bunch of drunks.
A little controversy there in old Jefferson City. Warren Love is a Republican state rep. And there is a Confederate statue for Confederate veterans there in Springfield at the National Veterans Cemetery. And somebody threw paint on it. I think people are assuming that the person is black for whatever reason, but I don't know why you would assume that the person is black who threw paint on it. Anyway, that's what is baked in the cake here for everybody. So, because otherwise you can't complain about what he said about it if you don't assume the person who threw the paint on the statue is black, right?
Right. I'd almost assume that it's more likely that the person wasn't black.
In Springfield? Yes.
Yeah. And with this particular story, it's not.
Yes.
It's a bunch of crazy white people.
And the fact that most of the people complaining about Confederate statues are white.
Right.
White liberal guiltists.
Yeah.
I would assume that they were white. Anyway, Warren Love decided on his Facebook page to say, "This is totally against the law. I hope they are found and hung from a tall tree with a long rope." Now, boy, I'm glad you didn't say you hope they are assassinated. Then you'd be in real trouble. Oh, never mind.
Good point.
But here's the thing, and I told you this was coming. That when Maria Chappelle-Nadal said that in a reply on a Facebook post to somebody else's post that she hopes President Trump is assassinated, people, called for her resignation and now want her expelled. I said, be careful what you wish for. I'm kind of already sick of the whole resign every time someone turns around.
It's like the whole apologize thing.
Exactly. It's like, everybody demands people's resignations all the time. And I just got sick of it. And that's why I said, don't make her resign. She apologized. She was hateful. She admits it, blah, blah, blah. Let her rip. No way. She ought to be blah, blah, blah. Now, if you're saying the same thing about Warren Love, then you're consistent. But if you're saying that Warren Love should resign, but you didn't say that Chappelle-Nadal should resign, that's the problem. If you say that Chappelle should resign, but you're not saying Warren Love should. See, this is the problem when everybody makes their rash, immediate decisions on the internet or whatever, because there's no way people are ultimately going to be consistent. Like these people aren't. I'm wondering whether or not the same people who are outraged about what he said about an anonymous person were equally outraged about someone hoping that President Trump is assassinated. Or is it okay to say a white dude should be assassinated, but not that a black person should be hung? I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what the deal. And that's why I said at the very beginning why it's so confusing when people sit there and march around and demand resignations, demand this, because ultimately sometimes it's going to come back on you. So what do you do now? Well, I'm fine because I don't think either one of them should resign.
And how about just in general, we stop just hoping people die?
Yeah, that should stop
exactly.
too.
Yes. Yeah. How does that sound?
And if you think it, you keep it to yourself.
Right. Exactly. But here's the other thing, though, when it comes to what's going on here. The reality is, somebody could defend themselves, but believe me, it's a little bit of a thin hair here. But I know what people will say. Well, I don't think Warren Love should resign, but I do believe that Chappelle should resign. Why? No. Well, and I'll give you the argument, guys, okay? I'll make the argument for you, okay? I'll defend you even though I don't think you're right. You can say, well, these people were committing a crime and Donald Trump didn't commit a crime. There's your answer. There's your Twitter reply right there. You could get that in about 120 characters,
I
right?
think so.
Okay, I'm just giving you your Twitter when you're called on the carpet because you wanted Chappelle-Nadal to resign, but you don't want this guy to resign. That's your argument. But I don't think it holds water, in my opinion. I don't think either one of them. I'm tired of people calling for resignations every time somebody opens their mouth. And I'm also, as Denise points out, I agree with you. I'm tired of people just hoping people will die. It's kind of idiotic.
Yeah.
But there's Warren Love. But you know what? He's emotional, right? Right? Wasn't he emotional?
If he had picked another way for somebody to die, would it have been okay?
Isn't that what Maria Chappelle Nadal said?
Yes.
I was emotional.
Yes.
That's all you got to do. I'll give you advice too, Warren Love. I was just emotional. Because that's how he talks, by the way. I'm not just making that up. I'm not just doing, for instance, what Politico did with their cartoon and make up an entire story about who Texans are. By now, maybe you've seen this diabolical political, I guess it's called a political cartoon, but it's more like cultural assassination. So it is a cartoon that features a guy in a cowboy hat in the water. He's wearing a Confederate, he's in a boat or something. He's wearing a Confederate shirt, okay, shirt with the Confederate flag on it. His house is sinking. He's got a Gadsden flag, which of course means Tea Party, floating in the water around his house, which means he was flying that. Then he's got a secede sign on his house that actually is a picture of, that actually is on a Texas flag. Mm-hmm. And what else? Anything else?
The Don't Tread on Me. But
Don't Tread. Yeah, the Gadsden flag. Okay.
Okay.
So then he's saying, thank God, God is coming to save us or whatever. And then the Coast Guard person, which by the way, this is also wrong. The Coast Guard person said, no. What does it say? What does it say again?
Actually, Coast Guard sent by the government.
Yeah, Coast Guard. Now, there are all sorts of things wrong with this picture.
Yeah.
First of all, it completely disparages the notion of faith and God and assumes, because I know that this guy, there's no way looking at this cartoon that this guy has ever set foot in a church or knows anything about Christianity and what Christians and what believers believe about God. And for that matter, Muslims and Jews at the same time. That God works through people, not parallel to people. Not parallel to the government. God actually is creator of the people who are in the government. God is the creator of the Coast Guardsmen who decided to go to Coast Guard school or become a member of the Coast Guard. By the way, so there's so many things wrong with this. First of all, that somehow these people are, that the hurricane victims are hypocrites because they're Texans and because they're conservative and they believe in the Gadsden flag, whatever. That God works parallel to the government, and that in fact the government is actually more powerful than God. That's what he's saying in his statement there. He is saying that the Coast Guard would say that to somebody. So if I'm in the U.S. Coast Guard, I'd be insulted anyway because he's putting words in the mouth of a brave member of our military. And you know what else though? I'm going to ask you a question. It's another game. Okay.
Here we go.
This hurricane, the bulk of the rescues and the bulk of the harm being done, happened in Harris County. Houston is in Harris County.
Okay.
And that's where the heavy damage is taking place, and that's where a lot of these rescues have been taking place. And of course, this guy's being portrayed as some Yahoo conservative, right-winger, Gadsden flagger, secessionist, which, again, there's something wrong with that, too, because the last state talking about a secession was California, not Texas. I'm just telling you. Yeah. Remember that? Remember California? We need to secede. They were going to plan on doing that. But that was the last state. But anyway, that's also what's wrong with that statement. But I want to ask you, okay? So all these assumption is that guy is a Republican, conservative, right-wing, Tea Party, God-loving wacko, right?
Yep.
So, in the 2016 election in Harris County, who won the plurality of the vote in the 2016 election? And I will give you, this is a multiple choice question. Actually, it's a two-choice question. In Harris County, where presumably this rescue is taking place, and this Yahoo right-wing, Gadsden flag-toting, Tea Party nut right-winger, God lover is being rescued and being a hypocrite. and being mocked for his suffering. So in the 2016 election, who won the Harris County vote? Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? Who wants to take this one first? Denise?
Trisha.
You want me to take it?
Sure.
I'm going to go with Hillary Clinton.
Oh, you are correct! In fact, it wasn't only a plurality of the vote. Hillary Clinton in Harris County beat
By a
Donald
lot.
Trump by a ton! 54 to 42. Another example of how idiotic these left-wing gargoyles, soulless, dark misanthropes in the news media are.
This cartoon is really scaring me, too, because I'm pretty sure that the guy that did it thinks that the government is God.
Well, absolutely.
You know,
I mean,
he's like, the government
right.
is my God.
Well,
like,
and that the government actually is more powerful than God. So not only is this guy mocking wrongly these people of Texas and assuming that because they're in Texas, that they're all just a bunch of right-wing Donald Trump voters who deserve everything they're getting, essentially, and are hypocrites. You think God? It's actually now you know government is actually what saves you. You guys talking about how you hate government and hate all this and hate all that. Now look what's going on with you. That's not true. But essentially what he's doing is he's not only disparaging God, and which is actually, you know, so heretical. I mean, it's so blasphemous that he's mocking God himself.
Yeah.
So there's so many things wrong with this, and I got to tell you, this guy, I guarantee you, he's never been to Harris County, never been to Texas, and never been to church.
And
Guaranteed.
Terrifying.
How'd you like them apples? Laid that one out, didn't I? Right on. That's because I'm a prominent conservative. Don't laugh at me, mister. I didn't call myself a prominent conservative like the Kansas City Star did. Hi, Jimmy.
Well, I might call you that, but
I would never call myself that, but the Kansas City Star did.
You know what? You know what bothers me, and I saw that cartoon. It's bias doesn't bother me, but profoundly ignorant bias bothers me. In other words, a failure to understand the position that you're biased against, and therefore a complete inability to engage with what it really says. Right? So that cartoon was profoundly ignorant, both about the Bible and about conservatism. I mean, the Bible says, for example, that civil authorities, the government, are ordained by God. In other words, you know, it's something that God gives the human,
right?
Human beings in order to make their lives more livable. And as you know, conservatism is not against all government. It wants government limited to the proper sphere of the civil authority, and it wants it to be vigorous and effective where it is supposed to act. I mean, my whole public life today is about a vigorous defense, which is a government function, right? So, including disaster relief. So, I just wish they'd, for once, you notice, Jamie, nobody ever engages today. It's always dismiss, slur, insult. Nobody ever engages, and that nobody is too strong a word, but...
well, anyway, you know what? Let me tell you something.
Probably more time than we should spend on a cartoon.
No,
but
that political cartoon is not a cartoon. It's a Rorschach test. That's what that is.
Yeah, you're right.
And it tells you everything you need to know about the left-wing media and the mind of a left-wing media member.
Not that somebody would want to do a cartoon like that. I mean, there are always people around, but that it would get published, and that the editors would not say to the guy, "Hey, look, it's a little bit deeper than the way you're taking it," right? I mean, it's and I think that has gotten worse since I began about 30 years ago. It's just too bad.
Yeah. Well, or somebody would say, by the way, what do you know about the people of Harris County who you're depicting? Because, they're not only it's factually inaccurate, that if you were going to pick a person from Harris County, that they would actually be a Gadsden flag-toting a Republican, because Donald Trump was trounced in Harris County. So,
right,
I mean,
right. So it's also profoundly ignorant about the politics of Texas.
Yeah,
so
right.
I think we can agree it's pretty ignorant all around.
All right, so yes. All right, on to yesterday, and boy, what a glorious moment when President Trump. This got the biggest round of applause when he took a jab and kind of made Congress pucker a tad here.
So this is our once-in-a-generation opportunity to deliver real tax reform for everyday, hardworking Americans. And I am fully committed to working with Congress to get this job done. And I don't want to be disappointed by Congress. Do you understand me? Do you understand? Understand. Congress. I think Congress is going to make a comeback. I hope so.
So that was a great line. The only thing missing from all that was cotton in his cheeks. That's all.
Yeah, he's pushing the Congress to pass his priorities, which is a classic presidential tactic. And I think they have a shot at getting some good tax reform. My fear, and I hope his administration will help in this, is that they not bite off so big or try and chew so big a bite that they can't get anything done. In other words, let's do the things we can do rather than trying to reform the entire the entire tax code, in one bite. Let's get some good things to stimulate the economy and help folks. And I think if they do that, they got a pretty good shot at getting something.
Very impressed with the Missouri Republican delegation, the congressional delegation. I mean, Blunt, Ann Wagner, Blaine Luchtenmeyer, Jason Smith, these folks were all completely on point yesterday. I'll have their comments a little later on, but these folks are huge allies. I'm really proud of Missouri and the Republican Party there. And by the way, Jimmy, do you see also the second best round of applause came when President Trump said this about Claire?
And your senator, Claire McCaskill, she must do this for you, and if she doesn't do it for you, you have to vote her out of office.
So there you go. That got a huge round of applause there.
He had a real reception from the crowd when he said that. And the only thing, of course, it wouldn't have fit the context of the speech, but I would like to have seen you mention Senator McCaskill's vote against Neil Gorsuch, which I just think was, if she couldn't find a vote for Neil Gorsuch, I don't know who she's going to vote for in the Supreme Court. So, that was a good applause line.
He did mention her, and he mentioned twice obstructionism, so I don't know, maybe that was what he was talking about there. But I do want to make sure that Claire knows, and that the rest of the people out there know, that he didn't mean that if she goes along with him, then she should be reelected. That's I don't want anybody
to mind her vote for it. And there's a possibility of getting some votes across the aisle for this. I mean, this is a new subject. I think that's what the president's saying. Look, we have an opportunity here on something that ought to pass, that we ought to be able to do, that Congress has done in the past. So let's clean off the slate and let's get this thing done. And I think it was a very appropriate message.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think there's a level of self-preservation here that I think crosses party lines. And it's not just self-preservation, it's doing the right thing. So I appreciate that. Jimmy, you're the best, man. Bipartisanpolicy.org, @JimTalent. Appreciate you as always.